What was it like for you to transition to being in that public space? Because it wasn't something I imagined that you were used to before you met Gary.
No, not at all, not at all. And I came from, I write about my upbringing in a very small little village in Natal. And yeah, being thrust into that world was crazy because Gary was at the peak of his career. And of course, everywhere you go, everyone wants a piece of him. They want the autograph, they wanted the photograph.
Interview.
So it was learning to, I guess, reconcile that space of living in his shadow a bit, because it's such a big, such a big persona that you do get used to sort of having to realize that, you know what, you're going to go to a function or a dinner and no one's really interested in talking to you because they really want to talk to your husband. They really want to ask about his life and his work. So that I found quite difficult. And I think writing the book has also been that process of making peace with that and coming into myself. And that's quite a strong message in the book, especially for women, to really own your story. Don't live in your husband's shadow or anyone else's, but you have a story, claim that story, own it, and be proud of it, and value it enough to share it with others.
Was there a defining moment for you when you, I guess, found within yourself to step out of his shadow almost and define yourself as a woman?
I think that's been quite a journey.
Yeah.
It's been a process. I think that I was never one to sort of live in anyone's shadow. So, but I did, of course. Like most of us women, we go through times of thinking, you know what, my story is just too boring. It's too uninteresting, especially when my husband has this big life and this big career. So we do tend to retract into that space. But I think it's been a process for me of learning to value myself and learning to own my story. Certainly the writing of this book has really helped me in that space. It's just to say, and especially the response that I've had from the book and from people who've read it, who've just been so, I say it so humbly, because they've been complimentary of the story, and suddenly you go, oh my gosh, after all, I did have a story, and I do. So it's been that process. The writing of the book has been very much part of me coming to that realization for myself.
Now, a lot of anecdotes in this book. Tell me about the one that you were most fond of.
Gosh, there are so many.
Or the funniest one.
The funniest one.
Just a little sneak peek.
Well, I tell some of the stories of the anecdotes when Gary was playing, and I think back to the days when Hansie Cronje was the captain. And there's one funny story that I tell of when they was traveling on the subcontinent, and every morning the guys were dished out malaria pills that they had to take. And Hansie was always up to something. He was a real prankster. So he said to the doctor, listen, I'll dish out the malaria pills today. And at the time, Paddy Upton was the fitness instructor, and he dished him out a sleeping tablet instead. And then they went to practice, and they said, okay, Paddy, you need to, being the fitness instructor, he had to sort of conduct the warm-up exercises. And anyway, those sorts of funny stories were how it all played out till eventually Paddy was stone cold lying on the field, and the guys dragged him under a tree on the side of the field, and he slept for 4 hours for the full practice. But there are lots of those sort of little funny things that people love to hear, because they never get to hear those things that go on. When you a bunch of guys and you're on tour for 2 months, 3 months, you can imagine they have to do a few things to amuse themselves. Yeah.
Now let's talk about the chai tea part of this book. You spent 3 years in India, you said. Did you get a culture shock when you moved there?
Well, we actually didn't completely move. We kind of straddled between South Africa and India, so we commuted. So we'd kind of spend a month there and a month at home. I had been to India with Gary when he was a player, and I had fallen in love with India. I always loved India. So when Gary got the job offer, I was super excited to go back. I thought, let's just take this on. This is an adventure, because it's such a culture shock, India. But I fell in love with that place. I love the country. I love the people. it was not an easy chapter of our lives. You can imagine I had 2 young children. One, our middle child was 9 months when we started.
Wow.
I hadn't had our third then, just as well. I don't think I would have coped. And just feeding them on a daily basis was a challenge with all the spicy food and then moving around constantly with the team. So it was a challenging time, but it was amazing. We were just welcomed into that country. We still love it. Gary still coaches IPL team, the daily team. So coming up now, April and May, he's in India for 2 months, and we'll probably go over. I'll go over with the kids twice. So I still love it, and every opportunity I get to whiz back there, I do.
I think every mother watching this video wants to know how on earth you move around with small children so much.
Well, I sometimes think maybe I should write some sort of like in-flight child entertainment guide, but you do what you have to do. I suppose I also at one stage said, how am I going to do this? I can't do it. And you just do what you have to do. You know, the kids would take a tiny little bag about that size, which would be their total amount of toys for a month on the road, and I would go shopping in an Indian market and find some little funny Indian trinkets or some henna tattoo stuff that I'd bring back, and they would draw on themselves. You've got to be creative. And I think living in a hotel room with so many of us, that was quite challenging. And really trying to, when in South Africa, we used to so much space with our kids. So that was quite a challenge. It's, a lot of cricket in the corridors and hotels, a lot of time at the swimming pool with the kids. So it was really kind of thinking out the box as to how you're going to get through a day in the middle of Calcutta in a hotel. How
do you get through the day in the middle of Calcutta in a hotel?
I think it's also being brave enough to leave the hotel, and there are amazing places to see in India. So we'd always do probably one little excursion with the kids where we'd go and see interesting temple. And one mistake I made in Calcutta was taking them to the zoo.
Oh no.
Not recommended. They're beautiful things to see in Calcutta. Don't go to the zoo.
Why?
It's, if anyone's ever been to the Johannesburg Zoo, I mean, that is amazing. And animals just have huge open spaces in which to roam. And you can imagine Calcutta, they're incredibly congested cities. So it was hard seeing the animals in such confined spaces and with chains around their neck and a little, so not recommended.
Okay.
But everything else, I mean, there were so many great places that we went, and we'd find big parks and go and, play with them, and
Well, duly noted. I won't be attending the Calcutta Zoo. Now, for anyone who picks up this book, what do you hope they take away from it once they're done reading that last page?
Jennifer, I think my message, I think there are a few messages that I try to get through. One is what I mentioned earlier, that, have the courage in your own story, especially women out there, believe that you have a story to share, to share with other people, that we can all learn from each other's stories. I think a main message of mine that I also want to get out is that when we find how our own story fits into God's greater story for us. God has a plan for each one of us. He's given us gifts and talents, and suddenly when we find that space where we're using what we're good at, we're using the things that He gave us, we're connected with people around us and the needs of those around us in our community and our society, suddenly our story starts to really take on a meaning beyond what it would if we were just going about our normal day. So it's about also finding how our story connects with God's bigger story for us. And when we find that place, suddenly our story takes on a whole new meaning and purpose, which really makes getting up every day pretty exciting.
You can get Deborah Kirsten's chai tea and ginger beer at all good bookstores. And if you've already read the book, let us know what you think in the comment section below this video.